Hello friends, welcome to With the Edu World, and in today's video we will learn the first chapter of 11th biology, the living world. First of all, we will see some basic definitions related to this topic. Okay, so the first definition is biology. What is biology? It is the natural science that involves the study of life and living organism. So this word biology is derived from Greek words bios means life and logos means study. So simply biology means study of life. Then you can see the next definition is physiology. So what is the physiology? How the human body works, how the cells, tissue, organs in the body works. Okay, so this overall working of human body is known as physiology. Or in other words, we can say that it is the branch of biology that deals with the normal functions of living organisms and their body parts. Then you can see the term biochemistry. As the name suggests, this biochemistry must deal with the bio means life and chemistry means chemical substances. Okay, so it is the study of chemical substances and vital processes occurring in living organisms. So friends, the name of our chapter is the living world. Then what is exactly the word living means? Now we can say that if a particular thing has the defining characteristics of living things or signs of living thing, then it can be a living thing. So what are those characteristics of living thing? You can see here growth, reproduction, metabolism and cellular organization of body and consciousness are known as the signs or characteristic of living thing. Okay, so we'll see briefly each criteria. As we saw, growth is one of the characteristic of living thing. Okay, so growth can be defined as increase in mass. For example, in case of animals or humans, increase in mass, size and height can be the marker of growth. Also, growth can be defined as increase in numbers. For example, if we talk about the microorganisms like bacteria, then increase in their number referred as growth. Okay, so increase in mass and increase in numbers are the twin characteristic of growth. In animals, growth is limited up to certain years or up to certain age. And in plants, growth by cell division occurs continuously throughout their life cycle. Okay, but you know that some non-living objects like mountains, sand hills or boulders, that means large rock, also grow. Then can we say that they are living things? Obviously no, they are not living things because this kind of growth occurs just by accumulation of objects from the outside. And in living organism, growth is from inside. Okay, so therefore growth cannot be considered as the defining property of living organism because some non-living things also grow. Then the second characteristic is reproduction. So what is the meaning of reproduction? Production of progeny possessing features similar to parent is known as reproduction. And this reproduction may be of two types. As you can see, sexual reproduction, that means by formation of male and female gametes, and asexual reproduction. Okay, so there are multiple ways of asexual reproduction like by spore formation as in fungi, budding as in yeast, and fragmentation that can be seen in fungi and filamentous algae. But there are many organisms which do not reproduce. For example, mules, that means hybrid horses, or sterile worker bees, infertile humans, they do not reproduce. That means they do not produce any progeny. So can we say that they are not living thing? No, they are living things, but they do not reproduce. Therefore, reproduction cannot be considered as the defining characteristic or defining property of living organism, because many living organisms, they cannot reproduce, but they are living one. If we talk about the next characteristic, that means metabolism, we know that all the organisms are made up of chemicals, and constantly in our body thousands of chemical reactions takes place, whether it is unicellular or multicellular. We know that many anabolic reactions, that means construction of new compounds, and catabolic reactions, that means degradation of the existing compounds into the simpler forms. So all these chemical reactions continuously happening inside any living organism. So the sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body is called metabolism. Because there is no living organism exists without these metabolic reactions occurring inside them. Okay, so the metabolic reactions occurring inside the cellular organization is the defining characteristic of living organism. So here another word is utilized, that means the cellular organization along with the metabolism. Then why this cellular organization is used here? Because for example some enzymes present in our body can also function well outside the body if we provide suitable parameters like proper temperature, pH, which are favorable to them. Okay, so the chemical reactions happening in laboratory outside the body is neither living nor non-living. Okay, so hence cellular organization along with metabolism is the defining characters. Okay, so the reactions that are happening in the laboratory, that is not defining feature of living organism, but the metabolism or reactions that are happening in cellular organization, that means in body, is the characteristic of living organism. Another criterion you can see, it is the consciousness. Okay, so it is the complicated phenomenon that is observed in all living organisms. So here you can see all living organisms are aware of their surroundings and respond to external stimulus or external environmental factors like light, temperature and water. Okay, so this ability to sense and respond to external environment is called consciousness, and this is the defining property of living organism. That means all the organism, whether they are prokaryotes or eukaryotes, they can respond to external environmental stimulus. And among all the organisms, human being is the only organism who is aware of himself, that is humans have self-consciousness. Okay, so as we saw, growth is not defining characteristic of living organism, as well as reproduction is not defining characteristic of living organism, but the metabolism occurring in cellular organization and consciousness are the defining characteristics of living organisms. If we talk about the diversity in living world, then we can see different kinds of plants, animals or organisms all around us. So these different types of living organisms represents a species. Okay, so here you can see each different kind of plant, animals or organism that you can see represents a species. So this huge variety refers to biodiversity. The number of species yet known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million. So this is the huge biodiversity. Then what is the meaning of nomenclature? So simply nomenclature means assigning a scientific name to a living organism so that a particular organism is known by same name all over the world. Okay, so this avoids confusion. So nomenclature means assigning a scientific name to any living organism. Here you can see two types of names that can be given to any organism. First type is vernacular names or local names or common names. So millions of plants and animals are present in the world, and we know the plant and animals in our own area by their local names. So these local names would vary from place to place, and this would create confusion. Hence, there is a need to standardize the name of living organism so that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. Okay, so this is the scientific names. So universally accepted only one name to each living organism is known as scientific name or biological name. So for plants, scientific names are based on International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. That means short form is ICBN. And for animals, the rules are based on International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. Short form is ICZN. Recently, 19th International Botanical Congress was held in Shenzhen, China in July 2017. And the old code ICBN, that means International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, changes to ICNAFP. That means International Code of Nomenclature for Algae, Fungi and Plants. This code is also called as Shenzhen Code. This code was published on 26 June 2018. So remember that the old code name for botanical nomenclature ICBN changes to ICNAFP. So the scientific names follows binomial nomenclature system all over the world. The founder of binomial nomenclature was Carl Linnaeus, and he introduced his nomenclature system in his book Species Plantarum in 1753. According to this system, the scientific names consist of two epithets or two parts, or we can say two words. And generally these names are present in Latin or Greek languages. So the first part is generic epithet or generally called as genus, and second part is specific epithet generally called as species. Okay, so these scientific names, there are two parts. First is generic epithet and second is specific epithet. Okay, for example, the scientific name of mango is written as Mangifera indica. So in this name, this first word Mangifera represents a genus, that means generic epithet, and the second word indica is species name or it is specific epithet. So there are other universal rules for nomenclature. We can see the biological names are generally present in Latin and written in italics. The first word in biological name represents the genus and the second component denotes the specific epithet, that means species. Both the words in biological name when handwritten are separately underlined. Okay, so when we write the names by our hand, then we must underline both the words, or in printed format it must be in italics to indicate their Latin origin. Then the next rule is that the first word denoting the genus must start with the capital letter, while the specific epithet, that means species name, start with a small letter. Okay, so here you can see genus name start with the capital letter and species name, that means indica, start with the small letter. And name of the author, author means the person who described that species for the first time. Okay, so the name of the author appears at the end of specific epithet, that means at the end of biological name, and it is written in an abbreviated or short form. For example, Mangifera indica. is the scientific name for mango, and here you can see other abbreviated word lin. Okay, so whole name is Mangifera indica lin. So this lin, it indicates that this species was first described by Linnaeus. Okay, so these are the general rules for writing scientific names. Our next point of discussion is classification. Okay, so what is classification? Here you can see it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms. Okay, so to study them, it is necessary to group them into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. For example, we can easily recognize groups such as plants or animals or dogs, cats, insects, etc. Okay, so this grouping is called as classification. This classification is based on similarities and dissimilarities between the individual. Okay, so the similar individuals are grouped into one group and dissimilar into other group. Okay, so like this way classification is carried out. Here we can see different terminologies regarding the classification. So first is taxa. So what is taxa? Classification is not a single step process, but it involves multiple steps in which each step represents a rank or category. Okay, so classification is done under different categories, and the scientific term for these categories is taxa. Now next definition is taxonomy. So taxonomy is the branch of study in which identification, nomenclature and classification of any organism is carried out. In systematics, not only diversities in the organism is studied, but the relationship among the organism is also taken into account. Okay, so the systematics, it is the branch of study in which systematic arrangement of organisms are studied. And taxonomic hierarchy, as we have already told that classification is multi-step procedure, or there are hierarchy of steps in classification, and all the taxonomic category together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. We will see this with the example. Here you can see the taxonomic hierarchy. That means different levels or ranks used in classification of any organism. At the top you can observe kingdom, and at the bottom you can see the species, and there are different ranks are present in between these two. That means phylum, class, order, family, genus and species. So species is the principal lowest natural taxonomic unit. We can define species as it is the group of organisms that can interbreed under natural conditions to produce fertile offsprings. So greatest similarities are present in between the individuals of the same species. For example, all the humans belong to the Homo sapiens. That means humans belong to sapiens species, and all the individuals of the sapiens species resemble closely. So as we go higher from species to kingdom level, the number of common characteristics goes on decreasing. Okay, so greatest variation is observed at the higher taxa, and smaller variation is observed at the lower taxa. Okay, so remember this, higher the taxa, greater is the variation, or in other words, smaller is the similarity, and vice versa. That means lower is the taxa, that means smaller variation or greater is the similarity. So remember this well. Here some examples are mentioned to understand how classification is carried out. For example, first is man. The biological name or scientific name of man or human is Homo sapiens. We know that here Homo is the genus and sapien is the species. Okay, so the genus is Homo, family Hominidae, order Primata, class Mammalia, and phylum is Chordata. Okay, obviously kingdom is Animalia. Here you can see housefly. Scientific name is Musca domestica. Genus is Musca, family Mucidae, order Diaptera, class Insecta, phylum Arthropoda, kingdom is Animalia. General name is mango, biological name is Mangifera indica. So Mangifera is the genus. This mango belongs to family Anacardiaceae, order is Sapindales, class Dicotyledone, and phylum is Angiospermi. Kingdom is Plantae. Common name is wheat. Scientific name is Triticum aestivum. So Triticum is the genus, family Poaceae, order Poales, class Monocotyledone, and phylum is Angiospermi. Kingdom is Plantae. So in this way, classification of any organism or plant is carried out. Different taxonomical aids are required for identification and classification of any unknown organism. So for this, biologists have established certain procedures and techniques to store and preserve the information as well as the specimens as a taxonomical aids. For example, herbarium. So herbarium is a storehouse of collected plant specimens that are dried, pressed and preserved on sheets along with description, which gives quick reference to us whenever it is required. Other aid is botanical garden. These specialized gardens have collections of living plants for references. Next is museum. Museum have collections of preserved plant and animal specimens for study and references. For this, specimens are preserved in the containers or jars in preservative solutions. Next aid is zoological parks. Here, wild animals are kept in protected environment under human care, which enable us to learn about their food habits and behavior. And the last taxonomical aid is key. So the keys are used for identification of plants and animals. Different keys are used in taxonomical identification which guide us in the right direction. So these keys are based on similarities and dissimilarities. So all these are some taxonomical aids which help us in identification of unknown organism. Friends, here we have completely covered our topic, the living world. Hope you will like the video. So please like, share and subscribe my channel for more such video. Have a great day.